What's up, guys? So, real quick, before we get into the card, I told y'all guys I've been wanting to do a contest, and I do all this for free. I'm not making any money doing this, so can't afford to do it every week. But I thought it'd be something cool for you guys. So I figured the best way to do it is I need you to pick 3 fights. I need the winner, the round, and the method of victory. And you're only allowed to have one decision. So the other two got to be submission or knockout. 3 fights. If you win, you'll get this. It's autograph Holly Holm. Probably the crappiest one I got, but hey, it's free. So if y'all want it, try to win it. And I'll turn the comments off. You can go over to my YouTube, or not my YouTube, my Instagram, and you can comment on there. I'll put a video up for it there. You can comment on it there, and I'll turn the comments off Friday before the fights, the day before. And same with the YouTube video. You can comment on here, your picks on there, and I'll turn the comments off on it Friday, and we'll see who wins. 2 people win. Maybe I'll figure something else out for you. I've got a couple other things. Maybe I can hook you both up. But I appreciate it, you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. What's up, guys? All right, so we're here to go over UFC 284, Makhachev versus Volkanovski, champion versus champion. It's kind of a big deal. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a good fight card. A lot of good fights on this card. We got Rodrigues versus Emmett in the co-main event. There's a lot of fighters that you would have thought that they would have shown up on this card. Like Carlos Oldberg and a couple other guys. That didn't make it onto this card, which is pretty surprising. But still a lot of good fighters on this card for sure. So let's start down here with the first fight of the night. It's Tyson Pedro taking on Modestas Bukauskas. So Tyson Pedro, he's 9-3, 31 years old, 6'3", with a 79-inch reach. He was 4-0 whenever he made his UFC debut. His debut was against Khalil Roundtree, and that's no easy fight, and he won that fight. And right after that, he blitzed through Paul Craig real easily. He's had some good wins. He's had some bad losses. Losing to an aged Shogun Rua wasn't a very good look, and that was back in 2018 maybe. That wasn't a good look, and then he was out for a couple years with some injuries and stuff like that. He's had 2 wins since he's came back. And they gave him some pretty easy fights in his first 2 fights back, but he did finish them as you would expect a good light heavyweight to finish them. He finished them both in the first round pretty quick by KO. Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker, not the best at competition, but he's looked really good. He's a big guy, super strong. He's got great power, good fast striking, good kicks to the legs and to the body. He has pretty good submissions as well for a light heavyweight, a bigger guy. Good Muay Thai. He's submitted, tough wrestlers that were out there trying to take him down and keep him down, which is pretty impressive. You don't see too much of that going on in the light heavyweight division nowadays. So he was originally supposed to fight Ming Yang Zhang, which is a Chinese fighter. I believe that would have been his debut. We've actually lost quite a few fights on this card. Quite a few that I wanted to see. I would have been going with him, in that spot for sure. So maybe that's why Modestas got the call, because they haven't given Modestas very an easy opponent, not once since he's been since he's fought in the UFC. It sucks he can't get an easier shot for once, but so let's talk about Modestas real quick. So Modestas is 29, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach. He's going to be giving up an inch of reach here. He's 13-5. Was actually cut by the UFC not all that long ago, and he went and got 2 wins since then with Cage Warriors, and actually one of them was by KO. He actually won the light heavyweight title in Cage Warriors. I don't know if that's why they're giving him the shot or if they just really needed somebody to jump in the spot. so he could have Tyson Pedro on the Perth card. But he didn't have an easy run in the UFC. Jimmy Crute, Michael Olszewski, Khalil Roundtree, those are the guys he fought. He lost to all of them. And knockout, the split decision with Olszewski doesn't look so bad in hindsight. But the Khalil Roundtree fight, he took that nasty leg injury, that side kick to the knee that Khalil hit him with, that just ended the fight. So he stands really heavy on his lead leg, which makes it a lot easier for him to get leg kicked. He never checks them either, which is something I noticed. It's happened in almost all of his fights at least with his first run in the UFC. I will go over some stuff that I saw in his last two fights with Cage Warriors that I feel like he actually has tightened a few things up. But and he never checks leg kicks. Doesn't have the best striking defense, but he does have good power. And I see why the UFC signed him in the first place. When they originally signed him, because before the UFC he had 11 wins, all by finish, and 2 losses by finish. So his first fight to ever go to decision was in the UFC against Olszewski. So he didn't fight for almost a year after the Roundtree fight. And I noticed some improvements when he came back. Of course, it's with Cage Warriors. It's not the best of competition, but he's worked on. He's throwing a lot more kicks. He's switching stances a lot more, which I like. A lot of feints. He's closed up his stance a little. Doesn't stand quite as wide as he used to. And I have a feeling they're working on that. All the leg kicks he was eating in all his fights, and that nasty injury he took by a leg kick. I wish he would throw longer combinations, because he's kind of just like a one punch, or one or two. He kind of feints the paws the left out there and then comes over with the right, and you can see it from a mile away. That's like his money shot. I mean, it when he lands it is effective. He knocked out a guy in Cage Warriors with it. But he needs to put more combinations together. 2 or 3 4-punch combinations, something. Otherwise it's just kind of like a one trick pony type deal. And he is a good fighter. He's not a bad fighter. He just hasn't had an easy opponent in the UFC. So what else? So he did look improved, but like I said, not against the best of competition with Cage Warriors. But he's getting another chance in the UFC. But unfortunately for him, I got to go with Tyson Pedro in this spot. Probably going to get a win by KO round 1. In Australia, in Perth, at home, and the crowd's going to be crazy. So it's going to be Tyson Pedro on the pick on that one. Next up, we got Zabara Tukhugov taking on Elves Brenner. And I didn't quite understand, this matchup here, what they're really doing here. I mean, Zabara is like a hardened UFC veteran. He's been around. He's fought some of the best. He's 32 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach. He's had quite a few fights fall off, like all year last year. I think he had 4 fights that all didn't end up happening that he was supposed to fight. And I guess the UFC was just so desperate to get him a fight, they signed a guy who's 3-2 in his last 5, whose last opponent was only 3-1, and flew him all the way to Perth to fight, a for real UFC veteran. I don't understand why this guy's, I mean, unless he just wanted to fight, he wanted to stay busy. I don't understand why they brought this guy in to fight, Tukhugov at all. Makes no sense. So Tukhugov is 5-2-1 in the UFC. He had a win over Douglas Silva de Andrade in his debut, and that dude's a badass. I don't care what anybody says. It's a tough fight for anyone. He's a tough motherfucker. So that was way back in 2014. He hasn't fought very often for someone that has been in the organization that long. He's got a great check left hook. He's very well-rounded. He's got good power, fast combinations. He uses good pressure as well. He can definitely take a punch. He ate a spinning elbow from who was that? Ricardo Ramos in that fight. But I went back and watched that. I don't know. Was that his last fight? Ricardo Ramos? Yeah, it was. He ate a spinning elbow in that fight and kept on going like it was nothing. Um, so he's got good head movement. He's a good counter puncher. He can work his wrestling whenever he needs to as well. He's actually really impressive, man. He's a really good fighter. And he's had. Let's just look at the people he was supposed to fight real quick, because I mean this kind of just got under my skin that I was even having to watch tape on this Elves Brenner guy. So all the fights that he had lined up: Nate Landwehr, Lucas Almeida, Joel Alvarez. Those are, especially Joe Alvarez is up there in the rankings. I mean that's a tough fight, and then he winds up fighting this guy who's never fought in the UFC before. I just don't get it. But Elves Brenner, he's 13-3, 25 years old, 5'9". We don't have his reach. Yeah, like I said, I don't understand this. So here it is. He has a lot of submissions on his record against horrible competition. With most of the people he's fought have little to no experience. He has good jiu-jitsu, but not really good wrestling or grappling. Basically, every time he's fought someone that is, with a little bit of experience, with anybody with like a 10 and whatever record, he ends up losing by unanimous decision. I don't know. I just don't get it. It was bothering me, but I don't know that if Tukhugov, I don't know if Tukhugov gets a finish here, but I'm definitely taking him in the spot. I'm going to go ahead and take him to win by unanimous decision, for sure. So Tukhugov is going to be the pick on that one. This Elsbrenner guy has no business fighting Tukhugov, for sure. So next up, we got Jamie Mullarkey taking on Francisco Prado. A lot of people have been calling this guy the Argentinian Drew Dober because of the chin. So Jamie Mullarkey's 15-5. He's 28 years old. 6 foot tall with a 74-inch reach. I really like Jamie Mullarkey. I'm a big Mullarkey fan. I love watching his fights. It's usually pretty exciting. He's usually either the hammer or the nail. I mean, he's a pretty good sized lightweight. He fights with a high pace. He's got good boxing, lots of experience. A lot of people don't know this, but a little known fact: he actually fought Alexander Volkanovski back in, let's see when that was. I thought it was cool that I saw that on there. Back in 2016, he fought Alexander Volkanovski and lost in round 1 to punches. So he KO in the first round. It's pretty crazy that Volkanovski was fighting guys this big. But here's a weird thing that I've noticed about him. It's he uses head movement well, but he still gets hit, and it's kind of hard to explain that, I guess, because it's like he can't really figure out, like he'll use the head movement on the first punch, but it's like anybody that extends their combinations to 3 or 4 punches or whatever ends up catching him. And he does get rocked a lot in his fights. He has gotten finished quite a few times. And he does have fast hands. He's got good knees in the clinch. It sucked seeing him get destroyed by Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner's a monster, though, so you really can't hold that against him, that much. But he had his moments, but in the end, he lost the fight. But Jalen Turner, like I said, he's a badass. You can't really hold that against him. He's kind of got that Neanderthal brow. That's how you know he's a tough dude. Jamie Mullarkey. So he won a split decision his last time out over Michael Johnson, and a lot of people felt like Johnson won that fight. And I mean, it was so close. Like I think I had money on Mullarkey, and I was kind of like, oh well, he lost that fight, and I was surprised he got the decision. But it was super close. I could see it going either way. It's kind of a mixed bag with him. I think he has decent grappling. He just doesn't use it as much as he could. He's 3-3 in the UFC. And, I've been saying that, this fight kind of has what happened to Gregory Rodrigues a couple weeks ago written all over it. The undefeated, young guy coming in against a guy who's a tough veteran or whatever in the UFC, and he ends up getting knocked out. But um, anyways, so his his opponent here is Francisco Prado, 11-0, 20 years old, 5'10", with almost a 71-inch reach. Um, so he's pretty good. He's he's fought a lot of like what was it called, the Shuto, oh, Samurai Fight House. That's who it was. Sorry, I was getting him confused with somebody else on here. He's got a lot of finishes. He's the number one lightweight coming out of Argentina. All of his wins are by finish, and he's got KOs and subs both. Like I said, not the best of competition, but he's fought a couple of reasonably experienced guys. He's got pretty good double leg takedowns. He's got great ground and pound from the top. Good elbows from the top position. He's pretty wild on the feet. He uses kind of like a more traditional boxing style as far as like how he holds his hands. He throws a lot of kicks real well, like spinning kicks and stuff like that, up kicks up the middle, leg kicks. He doesn't avoid leg kicks very well himself. Doesn't check them either. He transitions to the back pretty well on the ground. What else? He's a pretty proven fighter. As far as on the regional scene, and he's done everything you would expect of someone getting a shot in the UFC. He's going to be a bit smaller and give up a little reach in the spot. He's not a very technical striker. He's got heavy hands, and like I said, it's got the Gregory Rodrigues fight all over it. But I've got to go. I'm going to go with Mullarkey because I feel like Mullarkey's fought the better competition, and he's more well-rounded from what I've seen. Mullarkey's fought the better competition. He's done the things that he can do against harder opponents. He's fought Jalen Turner. Gotta take Mullarkey. I wouldn't put any money on this. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Prado ended up getting a knockout here. I just have to see more of him before I can confidently say that. But he does look like he's going to be going to be in the UFC for a while, and a pretty good prospect. So I'm going with Mullarkey. I don't know if he gets a finish. I'm going to say Mullarkey by decision. Next up, we got Blake Bilder taking on Shane Young. Blake Bilder is 7-0-1, 32, 5'8" with a 68.5-inch reach. So he's coming off a win on Contender Series. He's the Cage Fury featherweight champ. He looked good in that fight. Not so much on the feet. Like, we didn't really get to see much of what he had on the feet in that fight. He was eating a lot of leg kicks, in the fight, but he did show that he moves side to side real well, and he's definitely in good shape. He looked a lot bigger than his opponent on there. Ultimately he used his grappling to get the back and then the choke pretty quick. I think he landed a big punch and was able to snatch the neck kind of while the guy was standing. He's been to the later rounds several times, so he's got pretty decent cardio. I watched probably 3 of his fights, and it's pretty impressive. There are, like I said, it's tough, when you're dealing with guys when they're fighting, not as good a competition. But so he has a real wide stance. I've seen him get rocked in quite a few of his fights, but he does always come back and and get the victory. He can swing pretty wild at times. When he does land, he hurts guys for sure. I've seen him drop guys, in his fights with Cage Fury. He's very good at taking the back from a lot of different angles, if that makes sense. I watched him take the back and backpack a guy for a whole round. Once he gets on there, it's hard to get him off. He's looked pretty good for a guy that's only had 7 fights. He's pretty fast. He's explosive. There are things that could be better, but he's pretty solid, pretty well rounded. Good submissions, everything, and he's going to be taking on Shane Young, 13-6. He's 29 years old, 5'8" with a 72.5 inch reach. So he's 2-3 in the UFC, with one of those losses being a unanimous decision to Alexander Volkanovski when Volkanovski first came to the UFC. Um, so that's actually pretty impressive in hindsight that he went to the decision with him. That was his debut, I believe. And he's been out almost 2 years. He's pretty good. He just hasn't had a lot of like easy fights. I mean, he uses a good double jab. He mixes in takedowns really well. He's pretty high paced in a lot of his fights. He's got good knees in the clinch. He doesn't get hit a lot, or he does get hit a lot. Sorry about that. Yeah, he gets hit quite a bit, and I think that's mostly because of like his forward pressure that he was using, especially in his first few fights in the UFC. But he can keep that pace for 3 rounds. He looks like he's in great shape, the best shape so far for this fight that he's ever been in. He's put on a lot of muscle since he joined the UFC. He's bigger like every time we see him, and his head movement has improved. Um, the Morales fight was kind of a unanimous decision loss, and I honestly think he was just being too cautious because he had the Ludovic Klein head kick knockout before that fight, and he just wasn't fighting like he normally did. He was being kind of cautious, and he wasn't putting the pressure on like he normally does. Um, Omar Morales is a pretty big flyweight, or I mean featherweight, not flyweight. But so I mean, you can't really. He was kind of getting ate up with the jab in that fight. It's probably the biggest guy he's ever fought. So I'm sure he's gone back and worked on a lot of things. And he seems like he's been doing a lot of cardio. I mean, he looks really cut up and really strong. I was looking at his Instagram and um, so it's kind of funny. Like I don't know, it's kind of weird because everybody's going with mullarkey. A lot of the Tapology picks, and in this position, they're all going with Blake. Bilder. And it's kind of the same thing. Shane Young's been around the UFC. He's had some wins and some losses, and uh, everybody's going with Blake Bilder here, which is kind of surprising to me. Um, it's I got to go with the I got to go with the guy with a lot more experience that looks to be in the best shape of his life, and fighting at home as well. So I'm going to take Shane Young to get the victory here. Um, as far as method of victory, I guess I got to go. I guess I got to go with just a decision win, maybe a split decision, maybe it's a close fight. Uh, yeah, so I'm gonna go with Shane Young in the spot. Depending on what the line looks like, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna have any money on this one. Next up, we got Luma Lookboonmee taking on Elise Reed. Lookboonmee is 7-3, 5-1 with a 61.5 inch reach. Um, she's really impressive, man. And she's 4-2 in the UFC. Um, I can kind of sum her up pretty quickly. I mean, I love Muay Thai. And her being from Thailand, she has some of the best Muay Thai and women's MMA in my opinion. I mean, it's really pretty to watch. The knees, the elbows, the leg sweeps. She keeps a high pace and actually isn't at all that easy to take down. Um, she has always had a size disadvantage, but it's nothing she's not used to. And she's really good and really fun to watch, man. And Elise Reed, she's 6-2, 30 years old, 5'3" with a 63 inch reach, and she's 2-2 in the UFC. So she has decent kickboxing. Not a lot of volume, and not very good takedown defense or much of a ground game really. Um, so this fight is pretty easy to sum up. Neither of them like grappling. Um, I see this being a stand up war, and of course, which I think Lookboonmee is going to win. She has the better takedowns if she needs to take it there, which she probably won't. I think her Muay Thai is way better than Elise Reed. Is her striking's just kind of low volume kickboxing type stuff. I think lookboonmee's got this fight, and I'm going to be picking her to win by unanimous decision. Next up, we got Clayton Rodrigues taking on Shannon Ross. This is another one that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Uh, so we got Clayton Rodrigues. He's 7-2. He's 27 years old, 5'6", with a 67-inch reach. He's 0-1 in the UFC. He had a close fight with CJ Verga. So he's got good leg kicks. He's got a nice check hook, real fast. Good Muay Thai. Tends to load up on a lot of his punches. And he's got heavy hands. I mean, and so when he does land, it does have a big effect on his opponents. He used a lot of teep kicks. Used them kind of like a jab to keep his opponent off of him. I saw him get reversed a few times. He doesn't throw up a whole lot of submissions from his back. I saw him get mounted by Vergara. Sorry if I said Verga, it's Vergara. But he was able to scramble and get back up. If he gets forced to fight at a high pace and is pressured, he may get tired. That happened in the Vergara fight as well. But I think he's probably going to have gone back to the drawing board and worked on a lot of things since that fight. This, and plus Shannon Ross is completely different fighter than CJ Vergara. So we got Shannon Ross. He's 13-6, 33 years old, 5'6", with a 66-inch reach. He's coming off. He actually he got knocked out on his last fight on Dana White's Contender Series. So I was kind of confused as to why he was getting the shot here. I mean, I don't know if they just had a lot of fights fall out and or whatever. I mean, he's a tough guy for sure. I watched him get dropped several times and keep fighting. But honestly, from the few fights that I watched of his, I saw a lot of toughness, but I saw a lot of things that are gonna cost him in this fight and future fights. His chin for one. He got dropped 3 or 4 times before he finally got KO'd in that fight, and his head movement isn't very good. His striking defense needs a lot of work. He wasn't able to get the takedowns either. So I mean, I've got to go with I've got to go with Rodrigues here. And I'm going to say he gets the win by KO. Let's just go. Let's say round 2 or round 1 KO. Next up, we got Joshua Culibao taking on Melzik Baghdasaryan. Joshua Culibao is 10-1-1. 28 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. So he's 2-1-1 in the UFC. In his debut, it was up a weight class against Jalen Turner. Seems to be a lot of guys who fought Jalen Turner on this card, and obviously, it didn't go very well. But like I said, you can't hold that against him. It was up a weight class against a guy who's way bigger than him. So, but he's he's had a lot of good fights. He's looked really good. He looks better every time we see him as well. He had a draw with Charles Jourdain, and Charles Jourdain's really tough guy, really good fighter. Which looks pretty good in hindsight. Honestly, he looks better. Like I said, every time we see him, lots of kicks, tall, different levels, pretty good head movement. He's got great cardio. He has got good submission defense. He rolls with punches well. He's super fast. He's got a good chin. He's got a real nasty right cross. He doesn't load up on all his strikes. Everything is pretty measured. And he really impressed me in the Sung Woo Choi fight. In that fight, he came out there and he dropped Choi a bunch of times, and he just styled on Choi, in my opinion. I know it ended up being a split decision, but I don't understand how. I mean, he won every round in that fight, in my opinion. He really impressed me in that fight. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I will never, never go with Sung Woo Choi in a fight again, So he's taking on Melzik Baghdasaryan. He's 7-1, 31 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. He's got a long kickboxing background. He's 2-0 in the UFC. He's going to be giving up 3 inches of reach in this spot, but he's a really great striker. He's got fast combinations. strong kicks to the body, and mainly fights in a southpaw stance. As far as his kickboxing, it's really good. You know, he does struggle with wrestling, but hasn't really fought anybody with good wrestling or grappling yet. I think both of his opponents that he's fought so far are like 0-3, haven't had a win in the UFC, and I think Bruno Souza's got he's 0-3 in the UFC. So you got to take that into account. Um, and as far as like sometimes he keeps his hands pretty low, but I feel like he does it. He knows he's safe when he's safe usually, but he hasn't fought anybody as good as Joshua Culibao yet, so he doesn't need to be doing that against Culibao. Um, he's as far as who's fought the better competition, it's Joshua Culibao all day. Um, and I think it's most likely going to be a really exciting stand-up fight. But I do think Culibao could take him down if he needs to in this spot for sure. Culibao's, he doesn't have to use his grappling very much, but he can. He can get takedowns when he needs to. And I'm going to be going with Culibao in this spot. And I actually, I got him at like minus 112, Joshua Culibao. And I don't know if he's going to finish Melsick here in the spot. It's another decision win, I think, and it might be a close fight. But I think Culibao is probably going to win it with the volume, and Melsick might slow down in the third round, and Culibao will still be able to keep going. And that's going to be my first bet on this card is Joshua Culibao minus 112. You might be able to still get him at that. I don't know what the lines are looking like right now. I'm doing this video super early. The Derek Lewis fight hasn't even happened yet. This is that's happening this weekend, so I'm a week ahead. Trying to kind of beat the curve and stay a week ahead of everybody. And I've spent like the last 4 days just watching fights until I was basically brain dead. A lot of these fights I've seen before, but so next up we got Jack Jenkins. He is 10-2, and he is 29 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, and he's pretty good. It's his UFC debut. He's a really good striker. He sets traps really well. Like whenever he if he feints, he's feinting to set up punches. He's not just feinting like everybody does constantly and doesn't throw anything. Everything's like with a purpose. So I mean, he's really cool to watch, and you can appreciate that for sure. He's got great combinations. He doesn't use. He's got good takedowns. He doesn't use it very much. He's got good top control. He's got good submissions. He's really well rounded. He's got good elbows in the clinch. I was really impressed with what I saw out of him. And he's taking on Don Shainis. He is 12-4, 31 years old, 5'6", with a 67-inch reach. He's 0-1 in the UFC. He made his UFC debut against Sadiq Youssef. He kind of jumped in on short notice, basically to get a contract with the UFC, knowing that he's going against a way more skilled opponent all the way around. I mean, he got destroyed by Sadiq Youssef. It's really quick. He's kind of like a brawler. He throws a lot of wild shots. He crashes into his opponents. He does have big power, so that's always a risk, in fighting him. But I learned, basically by watching a couple of his fights that, he has trouble finding his way out of the tie clinch. He sticks his head right in guillotines, on takedowns if he shoots for a takedown. He does put on exciting fights. He's fun to watch. But I definitely got to go with Jenkins. Jenkins is more technical, more well-rounded. I'm actually going to go with Jenkins by submission, round 2 or 3, maybe a rear naked choke or something like that. Jenkins is definitely way more well-rounded than Shainis. And next up we got Jimmy Crute taking on Alonzo Menifield. So this fight's a little bit trickier than you would think. There was a time that did I skip a fight? Yeah, I did. So next up we got Randy Brown taking on Jack Della Maddalena. uh, so Randy Brown's 16 and 4, 32 years old, 170, 63 or sorry, 6 foot 3 with a 78-inch reach. Um, he's 10 and 4 in the UFC, and he's been in the UFC since 2016. He's super tall. He's got a long reach for the welterweight division. He's really improved a whole lot since being in the UFC. Um, he, he's uh, he's he uses his boxing really well. He's he he's got a really long reach. Sorry, I'm fucking brain dead still. He's got a super long reach. He knows how to use it really well. He's definitely improved on that. He's had a few weird losses in the UFC, like that. Where Nico Price knocked him out from his back, or whatever. But he looked amazing in the Chaos Williams fight, and he really showed how much he's improved. And he does struggle with strong grapplers. Like even Francisco Trinaldo in his last fight was able to kind of throw him around a little bit in the first round. Of course, he got the win there, but against strong grapplers, he can struggle. But he uses his jab really well. He uses that kick really well, that teep kick. He kind of uses it like a jab. He's really impressive, and it's just Jack Della Maddalena. He's the real deal. He's Jack Della Maddalena is 13 and 2, 26 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach, and he's 3 and 0 in the UFC, and he's got 3 knockouts, 3 first-round knockouts, and he's the real deal. He's got beautiful striking from both stances. He's got power in every limb. Um, I mean, he doesn't ever throw wild. He uses his arms real well to, both protect his face and his body when people are trying to, hit him with body shots. It's awesome to watch. He uses his jab very well. There's no wind up whatsoever. He's got great counters. There's nothing not to like, man. And I am gonna go with Jack Della Maddalena here by KO, and I'm gonna say KO round 1. Just like all of his other fights. He's just a different level of striker, man. He's got a different level of power too, and I think he'll be able to beat Randy Brown in this spot for sure. And that's another play that I took on this. I got him at minus 275, Jack Della Maddalena. So that's my second play on the card. Next up, we got Jimmy Crute taking on Alonzo Menifield. So like I said, this is a fight that is a lot trickier than you think. Jimmy Crute's 12 and 3, 26 years old, 6'2" with a 74-inch reach. He's 4 and 3 in the UFC. And there was a time, a few years back, back when he knocked out who was it? Who else was it that was on this card? Modestus Bukauskas. So back whenever he was knocking him out, and whatever, he was kind of like the next big thing at that time. Everybody was really hyping him up. He was a big favorite in his fights, and then he ended up having the losses to Anthony Smith. The leg injury wasn't such a big deal, and then he got knocked out by Jamal Hill. He's really, really well rounded. He's got big power. He's got good submissions, and hopefully he's back and fully healthy this time around. He's a really exciting fighter. He is a good fighter, I don't know how that fight would have went against Anthony Smith if he hadn't had that leg injury. I think it would have been a pretty competitive fight, honestly. But so he's taking on Alonzo Menifield, 13 and 3, 35 years old, 6'0", 76-inch reach. He's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage here. Alonzo Menifield, he's got a good record right now. He's 6 and 3 in the UFC. Hasn't fought the best of opponents. Fabio Charant, Ed Herman. Ed Herman's one of my favorites of all time, but he's way up in age now. Lost to William Knight. That's not a good look. Askar Morozov. It was a good knockout, and he knocked out Misha Serganov as well. But he was really just going out in that Misha Serganov fight and just winging punches, until he landed something. I mean, it didn't look pretty at all. Um, he styled on that Askar Morozov guy, which had a padded record, and he tried to lie about his record and stuff and all that. But so when it comes down to it, I think Jimmy Crute's the more well-rounded fighter. And I think if he can stay away from Menifield's wild punches in the first round, and maybe clinch up with him, tire him out a little bit, use his grappling, he'll be able to get a finish probably in the third round. Uh, but I think I don't know, maybe by submission. Let's call it by submission. Jimmy Crute by submission, round 3. Hopefully he gets back on track this time around because I'm a big fan of his. So next up we got Justin Tafa taking on Parker Porter. So Justin Tafa is 5-3, and I was really looking forward. His brother was supposed to fight on this card. I've been hyping up his brother on some of my. I did an MMA news episode a while back. Sorry, I got to get a drink real quick. I did an MMA news episode a while back, right before before his fight at Ryzen 40, when they did the Bellator versus Ryzen thing, and I said he was a guy to watch out for. He's like 4-0 in MMA, but it's all knockout wins. But he's got a long glory kickboxing record, and I had a lot of notes. I was ready to go in because his brother's really talented. Now I don't know how well it's going to transfer over to MMA. He does have a big hole in his game with the grappling, but his brother's a really good striker. I mean, if you look at his glory kickboxing fights on YouTube, there's a ton of them. Guy's got 20-something KOs. I mean, crazy, really good striker. And he's actually a little bit taller than Justin Tafa, and they're not built the same. He's a taller, skinnier guy, and I don't think he weighs in at the heavyweight limit either. But anyway, enough about that. And it sucks we didn't get to see him fight. I was really looking forward to that. I thought he was going to win that fight. He was supposed to fight what was that guy? Worley Acosta or whatever his name is. I don't know. I'll show y'all in a little bit. So Justin Tafa's 5-3, 29 years old, 6 foot tall, 74-inch reach. Looks like he missed weight his last time out. Came in at 267. I don't know. I don't know what everybody's seeing. I noticed on Tapology everybody's going with Tafa, and I don't know. His run in the UFC has not really been good. He got knocked out by Jorgen De Castro. He knocked out Juan Adams. I guess that's a good win. Not really, because I don't think Juan Adams is in the UFC anymore. But he lost to Carlos Felipe, split decision. He lost to Jared Vanderer. That's the one that did it for me, and then he beat Harry Hunsucker, and Harry Hunsucker's not a UFC caliber fighter, unfortunately. Tough guy though. So he hasn't had a very good run in the UFC, Justin Tafa, and he lost to Jared Vanderer. And just because of that simple fact, I have to go with Parker Porter here, because they both haven't fought very good competition. Chris Dawkins knocked out Parker Porter. Josh Parisian, hey, he's not a horrible fighter. He's one of the bottom of the barrel guys, but he could definitely take on some of these guys that that Tafa's fought and probably do well. Fought Chase Sherman, he won that fight. Alan Badeau, he's not good either. And he had that loss against Jalton Almeida. Jalton Almeida's a monster. So I think Parker Porter is actually going to be the better fighter here. And he's actually kind of fast for being a heavyweight. So, I know he's not the best. These are two guys that, I listen to a lot of the betting shows and stuff, or I used to. I don't really do it anymore, but a lot of people talk all kinds of crap about, these guys and, guys like these guys and Jared Vanderer and all that. And Parker Porter is definitely the best out of all those guys, I think, in my opinion. His record wouldn't show it, but at least he has he had a 3-fight win streak in the UFC, so that's something to, that's something. Sorry guys, my nose is all messed up today. It's like 28 degrees out here right now in Texas, which is surprising. We're not used to that. So next up, we got the co-main event. Yair Rodrigues taking on Josh Emmett. And, man, This is going to be a good fight. We got Yair Rodriguez. He's 14-3. He's 30 years old. He's 5'11" with a 71-inch reach. Um, he's 9-2 in the UFC. I mean, he's a really good creative striker. It's amazing to watch. He's got lots of power. He does all that crazy spinning stuff, but he does it to where it actually works. You know, a lot of these guys come out here and throw spinning back fists 50 times in a fight, and it's really, you know, you see it coming, and it's pretty obvious, you know, and he makes it look pretty. You know what I'm saying? Like he's really good striker, and you know, he's tightened up a lot of things. You know, he's tightened up his grappling, his takedown defense. You know, that fight with Brian Ortega, he was winning that fight before it happened. I know it didn't even go a full round, but he was winning that fight, and he was busting Ortega up on the feet. I know it didn't last very long, but I felt like he was going to win that fight, and I had money on him in that spot. And I think he was an underdog, and he ended up, you know, winning the fight. It sucked that he had to win it that way, but I think he would have won anyway. You know, but he's really creative striker. I mean, that fight that he had with Max Holloway, that's a loss, but that fight could have went either way, in my opinion. It was close. I'm a big Holloway fan, so of course I went with Holloway there, but it was way closer than I would have thought, and that's what really turned me around and got me on, the hype train of Yair Rodriguez. He's going to be taking on Josh Emmett, and Josh Emmett is he's 18-2. He's 37 years old, 5'6", with a 70-inch reach. And let's take a look at his UFC record here. So is he also 9-2 in the UFC? I guess so. He got caught by Jeremy Stevens back in the day. I don't know who Des Green. I guess I haven't seen that fight, or maybe I did and I just don't remember it. He lost to Des Green. You know, he's actually pretty sure he's a decorated wrestler. You know, wrestler background. But the thing is he could win this fight, guys, and if he uses his wrestling, but he never uses his wrestling. You know, he's had success with the hands. He's got the big fucking knockouts, the big power, and you know, I mean, he could win this fight. You know, if he would use his grappling, but he doesn't ever use his grappling. You know, he didn't use it against Calvin Kattar. A lot of people thought Calvin Kattar won that fight. I actually thought Calvin Kattar won that fight. I didn't have any money on it, but and I'm going to be taking Yair Rodriguez in this spot because I feel like Josh Emmett's going to go out there and he's going to try to strike like he does in all his fights, and you can't beat Yair Rodriguez. No, I don't think anybody in the featherweight division can strike with Yair Rodriguez. You have to use something else. You know, even I would say Volkanovski could beat him, but you know he would be using his takedowns and tire him out. You know, instead of just having a straight up, you know, stand up fight with Yair Rodriguez. I think Yair Rodriguez wins by knockout. Probably in the later rounds. You know, let's say fourth round. I guess Josh Emmett has been 5 rounds at least once. Yeah, again, I think it was only against Calvin Kattar that he's been 5 rounds. But yeah, I'm going with Yair Rodriguez for sure in this spot. I'm debating on having money on it. I think Yair Rodriguez is minus 145. In the main event, we got Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander Volkanovski. So Makhachev's 23-1. He's 31 years old, 5'10", with a 70.5-inch reach. You know, what's there to say? You know, I mean, he's one of the greatest lightweight fighters ever. You know, I mean, his wrestling is the best that we've seen. I mean, aside from Khabib. He's got a crazy-ass arm triangle choke that he just puts everybody out with. I mean, he ran through Charles Oliveira like he was nothing. And he's worked on his striking. His striking looked much improved in that fight. And, you know, he KO'd Bobby Green, which he ran through him pretty quick. You know, he's really good. And there's not a whole lot, you know, you really need to say here. And you know, Volkanovski's, he's 25-1, 34 years old, 5'6", with a 71.5-inch reach. So he's actually going to have some reach in this spot. But, you know, guys, I'm excited that this fight's happening. I don't think it was a smart decision by Volkanovski. You know, I mean, he's got the perfect record. He's ran through everybody at featherweight. I get why he did it. But, I mean, guys, I got to go with Islam Makhachev in this fight. I know he says, you know, Volkanovski's saying, like, people haven't, you know, oh, yeah, he's short, you know, whatever. They've never, I mean, I'm a brick wall is what he's been saying. But Islam Makhachev is a bigger brick wall, you know, and I hate to say it, man. I'm more of a Volkanovski fan than I am Makhachev, you know. But I got to go with Makhachev, and he's probably going to get a submission, you know, first or second round, probably arm triangle, just like he's done everybody else. I don't see Alexander Volkanovski being, you know, strong enough to keep Makhachev from getting him down. Um, Maybe I'll be wrong, you know, but I hope not because my my third play on this card is going to be Islam Makhachev straight up minus 300 is what I got him at. Right when the books opened for this card, I got him at minus 300. Um, yeah, man, it's it. I can't until Volk shows me that. I mean, I can't say that. Nobody's been able to keep Makhachev off of him, and I don't think somebody coming up from, you know, a weight class below is gonna be able to do it either. For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's and if you look at the past and look at, you know, fighters that have gone up and fought, you know, I mean, here recently who went up and tried to fight, you know, Max Holloway went up and tried to fight Dustin Poirier, and you know he got the crap beat out of him. I don't remember who else has gone up in recent times. I guess Henry Cujo did, but I definitely got to go with Islam Makhachev. I took him at minus 300. So my three plays for this card, I just told you Makhachev minus 300. I got Jack Della Maddalena at minus 275, and I got Joshua Culibao at minus 112. There might be more. I might come up with more. I wanna get Zabara Tugov in on something, but he's a really big favorite, so I'm gonna have to find somebody to parlay him with. I'll post another video if I put any more bets up. Maybe I'll put him and Tyson Pedro on a parlay or something. See what that looks like. But see, we lost quite a few good fights. We lost Joe Alvarez, Zabara Tugov. We lost Junior Tafa, Austin Lane. We lost Junior Tafa, Waldo Cortez Acosta. We lost Kai Kara France versus Alex Perez. We lost Robert Whitaker versus Paulo Costa. So there's a lot of good fights that ended up dropping off of this card. But ultimately, it's still going to be a good card, guys. And I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate all the support. I know I'm not the best. I know I don't have all the cool video editing stuff, you know, I do everything in one take. It's not always perfect. But I do appreciate everybody that's commented and, you know, told me that they enjoy my videos. So thank you guys very much. And if you want to go to my Instagram, highkick_fight picks, I post all my picks on there too and all my bets. And I'll be posting the contest deal on there as well. So y'all be able to comment on this YouTube video. I'll be turning the comments off the day before the fights. So it would be Friday. I'll be, you know, turn the comments off on the video and on the Instagram post once I put it up. But yeah, so I'm going to put a video ahead of this. I haven't done it yet. That explains all the contest rules and stuff and shows y'all what y'all can win. And I appreciate you guys. I'm out of here.